going to be recording now, and I am getting ready to share my screen. Um, and Today we're going to talk about the year-long internship. And this evening, I'm going to provide you with an overview of the year-long internship, your role as a clinical educator, expectations of students, transitioning to student teaching, troubleshooting that you may have to do with your year-long intern, and then answer any questions that you might have. Please know that the chat feature is off on my computer since all I can see is the big screen that you're able to see. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, but know that I am not able to see them until after I minimize the screen. My name is Tisha Green. I am the Assistant Dean for School and Community Partnerships. I am new to this role. I just recently came out of a school. I guess I won't be able to say that for too much longer, but I was an elementary school principal until June 30th, where I was for 9 years. And prior to that, I worked in the central office. I was also a high school English teacher. And so I just want to say a huge thank you for supporting our student teachers and for making sure that there is a pipeline for teachers because we definitely need them. So first, I want to give you an overview of the year-long internship, and that is the semester prior to our students going into their student teaching semester. So just before we talk about the year-long internship, I want everyone to know that currently all of our teacher education preparation programs are undergoing a redesign. And the purpose of that redesign is multifaceted, but really it's to ensure that our undergraduates receive a year-long internship and our graduate students. That has not always been the case, but we want to make sure all of our students are prepared to be good teachers. We know that we don't expect them to be as good as you are right out the gate, but they need more clinical experiences before they become full-time interns, and they need to get into schools and really make sure that they're equipped to be good teachers. And so they will be in schools. And we want all of our students to have a year-long internship the semester prior to student teaching. And the student teaching semester is the full-time teaching semester. So the year-long internship is designed to provide our candidates with more direct contact within the school, classroom, and possibly students in which he or she will teach or student teach during the full-time student teaching semester. We know that depends on the semester in which our students actually conduct their year-long internship. So if they have their year-long internship in middle or high school, sometimes those students that they teach during student teaching are not the students that they actually have because they change at the semester. Of course, that really depends on how the school is scheduled. But we know that at elementary, if they start their year-long internship in the fall, they continue with those students and see them matriculate after the spring semester. Um, so some of our students begin their year-long internships in the spring and student teach in the fall. Some begin it in the fall and student teach in the spring. One of the things we want to remind all of our clinical educators is that during the year-long internship, the candidate is taking a full load of classes. So some of our candidates are taking 15 to 18 credit hours worth of courses during their year-long internship. So they're trying to balance being in your schools at least one full day a week, along one full day per week, plus taking a full load of classes. So it is a lot for our students to juggle. Most of their schedules do allow them the flexibility to be in your schools for the equivalent of one day per week, and we would like them to break that up in no more than 2 half days. However, because of some of their minors, that can look a little different. And so we do want you all to realize they are full-time students. We do have some resources for you as the clinical educators, and after this webinar, it might be a couple of days. We have to get the recording together, but we will send you some resources to review as well. But part 2 of our student teaching handbook, which is available on our website, has information about the year-long internship, the student responsibilities, as well as the clinical educator responsibilities. And we will also scan and email you all of the handouts we provided during the orientation that we had face-to-face as well. So now I'd like to shift to the role of the clinical educator during the year-long internship. So the clinical educator responsibilities during the year-long internship include orientating the student intern with the school and management of the classroom, familiarizing the intern with the organization, personnel, and resources of the school, providing any necessary instructional resources and materials, attending orientation sessions and student teaching training, and then guiding the intern through self-assessment and reflection. And this, of course, counts as your orientation. There are some additional responsibilities. Our students have a year-long internship checklist, and there are activities that we hope your student has worked with you to identify that they are going to do within the first weeks. We want them to plan out those activities so that they don't just come to you and say, by the way, I need to teach, you know, a small group lesson or a whole group lesson, or do something one-on-one with the student, or administer an assessment. So we want to make sure that they are going over that checklist with you. We actually worked with some clinical educators to revise the YLI checklist for this semester, so it is different from the ones we've used in the past. We hope that it's more rigorous and better prepares our candidates for the role that they will have when they student teach. We also need your help with assisting the intern with developing instructional plans. We know that your interns will be, for the most part, utilizing the instructional plans that are created by your team and you, but we also know that they have learned how to plan lessons in their courses, and so we want you to give them feedback on those plans and make sure that the plans are those that can support the instruction that you expect in your classroom. We hope that you will allow our interns to complete required instructional activities and, of course, give them feedback. Communicate with the university and our office regarding intern progress, and then involve the intern in aspects of student learning. So if you're administering an assessment and students do well or not, or as a result of the instruction that the intern is providing, I think that those are great ways to make sure that the student intern is involved in how students are progressing based on their contributions to your classroom and eventually theirs as the semester progresses. So there are lots of roles that the student interns have during the year-long internship, and now we'll shift to those. So the student intern responsibilities during the year-long internship includes reviewing the student teaching internship handbook and checklist with you. So we put the onus on the student teacher. The handbook is digital. We do not print those any longer just because we make frequent updates to the handbook. And so they have an orientation that's face-to-face as well. And we talk to them about the requirements, and we want them to go over that with you. They should work with you to identify and agree upon a schedule and key activities that they should work with you on for the year-long internship. They should also exchange their contact information with you the school placement contact and the school safety contacts as well. I think it's critical that everyone knows when they're going to be there, that they're in the building, who they are, etc. Again, they have to spend a minimum of the equivalent of 1 day per week in the classroom. And I want to reiterate this because if they do not do this, they will lose their student teaching placement. So it is critical if your student is not coming regularly and they were told this in orientation, please let us know. Do not wait until the end of the semester because they will lose their placement for student teaching. It is an expectation. They cannot decide at the end of the semester they're just going to do all their hours then. The purpose of having a year-long internship is to do a year-long internship. We understand that they might get sick, they might have a family event, they might have finals or midterms, and so there might be a couple of weeks where they can't come and they need to come an extra day, but that should not be a regular habit. They have year-long internship logs that they complete with our office. And that's one of the things that every full-time supervisor or faculty member in our office regularly checks to make sure the students are completing their logs. So we want to make sure that information is accurate. The only way we know if it's accurate is if their clinical educator is honestly telling us if their interns are showing up. So if they are not coming, we have to know. Additional student intern responsibilities include notifying you immediately if the attendance changes or they have to come late. It is unacceptable if they are regularly late or if they constantly if they constantly change their attendance habits, because we know that that's going to transfer to their student teaching. So one of the things that I would tell you is you are not bothering me. I am your year-long intern contact for the entire semester. So if you have any issues with your year-long intern, please let me know immediately. I meet with students all the time. And the first time I try to meet with a student, meet with the clinical educator and address the issue. And the next time we just try to, we let the student know they're going to lose their placement. We want to make sure that the student is getting your signature when they complete the YLI checklist activities. It should be at a convenient time for you, but it should not be at the end of the semester. You're busy. And so if they wait until everything's complete and then get your signature, how do you know that you're going to remember when they did something? So I think they should get it as soon as it's finished, but at a time that works for you. So it might be that morning when they come in and you have a free moment, but not while you're receiving students and out on hall duty, or it might be at the end of the day, or it might be when you're meeting, at lunch or planning. Establish agreed upon time, but make sure that you're regularly signing off on the activities they've done, because what I've found is sometimes CEs forget and then that penalizes the student. The same with the attendance log, and it can be you that completes that. I think it's better if it's you because the front office secretary doesn't necessarily know how long the student was there. You know how long the student was there. The student should secure approval before completing instructional activities, and that's critical because what if you're out one day and they're doing something and then there's no one to verify it? Substitutes aren't going to know who that student is and what they were going to do and the quality of the assignment. The students are to maintain confidentiality. They can't post anything about their assignment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They know all of that. And they also know they're not supposed to talk about their placement information. You'll sign a confidentiality agreement next semester about your student because you will be integral in their grade, but they also have to maintain confidentiality in their placement, and they sign off on that when they apply for their placements. They also have a dress code. We have a dress code policy, and that's one of the documents that we provide to you. They should dress professionally. They should be open to feedback, to growing personally and professionally. Additional responsibilities for the students. We know that they're taking a full load of classes, both for their major and minor, but that doesn't absolve them of making sure that they're showing up in their YLI placement. They need to plan out when they intend to teach small and whole group class lessons, not just show up and say, by the way, I'm supposed to be teaching a lesson today in your class. It needs to fit the schedule and it needs to meet the needs of your students. So if their lesson has nothing to do with the scope and sequence for your lessons, then that's a crucial conversation that you should have with our student that says, hey, you know, we need to plan this out so that it meets the needs of our students. One of the things to let you know, we encountered this last semester. They have every intention of planning things out, and a professor realizes my students did not get enough of this, and I can't let them go into student teaching without having experienced this. So they may have additional assignments required for their classes that are unrelated to the checklist. And I don't want you to think that they just didn't tell you that they had to do this or that they waited until the last minute. It is very real that in some cases they get assignments at the last minute from instructors. And so I just want you to realize that that does happen, especially with the number of classes our students take. So now I'd like to quickly talk about transitioning to student teaching. As our students transition to student teaching, a couple of things to think about is that they should be reviewing the student teaching and internship handbook and checklist with you, because a lot of them should really begin thinking about being your student teacher before the semester ends. We do have separate training for student teaching, both for our clinical educators and our students, and it's critical that you attend because we have a whole set of criteria. We have evaluation instruments for student teaching that you'll be completing for our students. And if you don't attend that training, you won't know how to evaluate our students, how they get their grade. We do some calibration exercises, how to give them feedback. And during the year-long internship, there is no such requirement. At the end of the semester, you're going to get a survey, but that doesn't impact their grade. Whereas during student teaching, you very much impact their grade. Again, you want to front load the agreed upon schedule and activities. We will let you know what the pickup schedule is. And sometimes we don't have that until, since this is spring year-long interns, we may not have that till the fall. We've heard that some school districts are changing their calendars perhaps for the fall. So we're trying to get ahead of our orientation and potentially looking at some earlier orientation dates, both for students and clinical educators, looking at some alternative delivery methods coming out to you in your districts, as well as, again, trying online WebExes if our technology agrees with us. But you're going to want to start talking about that because, as you know, the beginning of the year is really crazy and you just don't want to be overwhelmed with all of that. They have a really big assessment in the fall called EdTPA, and that is going to be required for their license. They will be the first group that EdTPA is required for license. They must pass it. And it's a new requirement. It's like national board, and we usually do an activity during this WebEx, but there's information on our OSCP website. We'll send you that link with a little video about EdTPA and how you can support your candidate. It will be a part of your clinical educator training in the fall. But it's critical that we support our candidates because if they do not pass the EdTPA project the first time, number one, it's consequential for licensure, but two, it will cost them quite a bit. Our university pays for the first round, but if they don't pass any components, they have to cover the cost. In addition to whatever other licensure exams they must take. Again, we want our student interns to exchange their contact information with the clinical educator, the school placement contact, school safety contacts, etc. They should spend a minimum of the equivalent of 1 day per week in the classroom. My hope is that towards the end of the semester, once they've finished all their course requirements, that they might spend additional time, and some of them will, some of them won't. We hope you won't count that against those who won't. But also that they'll complete the YLI logs and communicate, and that you and they will communicate with our office contact. For you, at the end of the semester, a survey will be sent by the Office of Assessment and Accreditation, and we ask that you please take that. We look at that. If there are any red flags, we call the student in, we talk to them, we will meet with you if we need to. But we also want you to tell us early, way before that survey is sent, if there are any issues with our year-long interns. We also ask you to review the dispositions documents and notify our office if there are any concerns. We will send that out to you as well. The dispositions for our college, it's something that our students have seen since they were given entrance into our college, and so they know the requirements. It's built into their coursework. And so we expect our candidates to meet the requirements for dispositions, and you will fill that out at the end of their student teaching to indicate whether or not they meet the dispositions requirements. Again, notify us if there are any concerns. We will meet with any candidate with unfavorable survey results, and our goal is to resolve any issues before they arise, definitely before they start student teaching, and to make sure that you have a great student teaching experience. So some troubleshooting tips for you. Here are the 3 biggest areas that I have encountered since in my short tenure here in the Office of School and Community Partnerships. But these are some things that have come up in the past with the year-long internship. And the first is communication, that there's some sort of breakdown of communication between the student teacher and the clinical educator. The second is that there's a difference in management style or personality. So there's a difference in how the clinical educator manages the class, completes plans, and how the student teacher does so. And the third is that there's a failure to meet expectations. There's a failure of the student teacher to meet expectations for the year-long internship. Maybe they don't come when they say they're going to come, or they're just standing in the back of the room. They're not engaged. They're not taking over. They're not really sure how to become part of the class, especially since they're not there very frequently. And what I find is that usually goes back to communication with the clinical educator, and just how to navigate that. And part of what we want you to remember is that our students have had a lot of class experience, a lot of pedagogical experience. They've not had a lot of face time in front of students. And so that's why we value the opportunity for our students to have a year-long internship. And that's why we value you as the clinical educator. You are really the critical lever in the success of our student teachers. And I know that sounds, it's like the teacher's everything. The teacher is the number one person for students. You're the number one person for our student teachers. And I don't want to make that seem like you're the catch all, but you really are the critical lever for our student teachers. And know that we don't just drop them off at your door and forget about them. Our office is here to support you, and that's why I say you're never bothering us if there's an issue. Um, I was the principal hiring the graduates this time last year, and working with them and coaching them. So I never want anyone who's in a classroom to feel like you're overwhelmed. You've got to now work and coach this person. That is our job. Our job is to support you and help you and work with our candidates. So if you have someone that you just feel like, I've tried my best, I don't know what else to do, or I don't even know what to do, and I need somebody to help me, we're here to do that. And so please reach out to us and contact us. So our goal is for a successful year-long internship and transition to student teaching, because a good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. Our goal is not for you to consume yourself. Our goal is for you to light the way for others. So at this time, I'll check to see if there are any questions. That is my email address, and that is also our office. Email, and I'm going to shift back over to the meeting, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if there's any questions. Okay, seeing that there are no specific questions, I just want to thank everyone for coming. That did not last as long as I thought it would, partly because we did not do all the activities that we did in the previous session. I hope that was informative. I hope that that gave you some good information about the year-long internship, but did not take too much of your time this evening. So in exactly 27 minutes, it looks like we were able to give you all the information that we have this evening. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any hands up. So thank you all. Thank you again for being clinical educators. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Good night.